A few weeks back, I did a video on how to create a database with MariaDB or MySQL, which are pretty much the same thing. MariaDB is a fork that's more popular on Arch Linux. So today what I've decided to do is go back to that and look at how to run some just basic SQL commands, so things like your create tables, your selects, and things like that, just so there's a basic video on my channel for how to do some SQL stuff. So let's get started. Good afternoon everyone, and welcome back to the channel. So I'm not going to go over things like how to create a database or how to install any relational database management system today. I will assume that you guys already have that. But if you don't, there are plenty of videos out there on how to do that. So what I'm going to go over today is just some basic SQL commands. So I'm going to assume that you already have a database set up for this to actually work. So the first thing we're going to go over is how to create a table. So this is fairly simple. So create table is basically the start of it, and then you give it a name for the table. And with MariaDB, we can put stuff on different lines, which makes this a bit easier to read. So the first attribute we're going to add to the table is ID. So we're going to make that a type int, and we're going to say that that can't be null. So if you put not null in there, then there has to be a value supplied to that column. And because this is the attribute we're going to use to identify the table, or identify the row, then we're going to make it auto increment. So basically what this will do is every time you add a new row to the table, it'll assign it a number, incrementing as the rows go on. So I guess we can also give this user a name. So we can say that this one is going to be of type varchar, and we'll make that of length 100. So a varchar basically will let you store a string up to a certain length, and I've supplied it 100, so that means a string of up to 100 characters long. And next we will assign the primary key of the table, and we're going to assign that to ID. So the primary key is what you use to identify rows in the table. And now that that is done, actually, I guess we can also make... Okay, I already ran it, so I can't do that. I was going to make the name not null, but I can't go back and change that now. So now we can see that the query has run okay, and actually I'll zoom in on that so it's a bit easier for you guys to read. And we should be able to actually look at that table now. So if we go select star from user, this will select every single attribute in the user table, going down the entire table, because we haven't given it a where clause. So it'll return an empty set. So to address this, we need to insert some values into the table. So I've cut them out of the video, but I've made a bunch of mistakes when I'm trying to do this, because I don't write SQL that often, because you usually write it once and then you just leave it and it works. So I made a mistake when I was trying to do my insert statement. So the way we do this is we write insert into, and then the name of the table, and then we give it the column, and we write values. And then after this, we supply all of the rows that we want to add. So say we want to add a row that contains Brody, and a row that contains John, and a row that contains, let's say, Steve, for example. And we don't need to supply these in an enclosing bracket. And we also don't need to supply the ID, because the ID is auto-incrementing, so the database itself will handle that for us. So now if we run this, this should add into the table correctly. And now we can see that that has been added. So if we run select star from user, and then we put a colon at the end, we can see that we now have some rows in the table. So we don't actually have to write select star. Say we only want, for example, the names. We can just replace that with name, and that'll return only the names. Or if we want to, we can explicitly write everything out. So we can select ID and name. I think you can also reorder them. I'm not sure, I'll try that. Yes, you can. So if for some reason you need them in another order, you can do that. And something else you can do is you can supply a where clause, and this basically will compare whatever's here with each value of the table and take out everything that matches. So let's say we want only the row where the ID equals 2, for example. Make sure you remember to actually include the name of the attribute you're trying to compare against, otherwise it's going to fail. And now that gets the row that contains John's name, because John is the row that has the ID that equals 2. So we can also do this with a delete statement. So if we go delete from, and then we want to delete from the user table, where, let's say, the ID equals 3, for example. That will delete the row where the ID equals 3. So that has run successfully. So if we run another select clause, we can go select star from user. Now the third row is gone because that row is the only row that has an ID of 3. You don't have to do this with the primary key. You can do this with non-primary keys, but you do want to be careful then, because primary keys have to be unique. That will always delete one row. If you do want to delete a bunch of rows, like you don't like, I don't know, you don't like Johns in your database, then you can delete all the Johns. Make sure you keep that in mind, that the primary key is always unique, but other keys don't have to be. So we can also do an update clause. So if you write update and we do user, I've got notes off to the side of my screen if you notice I keep looking over, and then we can go update user set, and then we can set the name to equal, let's say, I don't know, Tom, for example, where you don't have to do the keywords in capitals. I just like doing them because it makes it a bit easier to read. And we can say where the ID equals 2, for example. So this will set the name of the row that has the ID of 2 to Tom. So if we run that, then we can see that runs successfully. If we do another select clause, which you'll be writing a ton of, and we can go select star from user. And now we can see that John is now gone from the database, but that row is still there because we've changed John's name to Tom. So we can also do a order by clause with our select statement. I think this is the last bit of select that we're going to do. So if we go select star from user and we go, let's say, we'll only have 2 things to order by, and we're already being ordered by the ID. So if we want to order by the, let's say, name, it's going to be in the same order because the names that we have are already in alphabetical order. I should have done this before I deleted Steve and actually had that in a different place, because then you'd actually be able to see a change, but well, whatever. You guys see it working now, so you can try it out for yourselves. So the last command we're going to go over is a very dangerous command that you should only do if you are absolutely sure that you want to do this. So it is the drop table command, and there is an infamous way to destroy your database, and that's drop table star. So drop table star, as we've seen, star will match everything. So if you do star in a drop table, then that basically just means drop every single table in your database. So we don't really care about that because we've only got this one table, so we can just supply that user, and that means the exact same thing. But if you've got a massive database, you want to be very, very careful. You probably just don't even want to allow drop table star to ever be run. So if we run that, then we can see that has now run successfully. So if we now do a select clause, okay, I lied, we're going to do one more select clause, and we say we want to select star from user, we can see that that table does not exist anymore. I think that's pretty much everything. I'm going to do a dedicated video on joins because joins are fairly complicated and I think they deserve an entire video to themselves. So if you like this video and you learned something, let me know in the comment section below. If you want to see more from my channel, remember to like and subscribe and hit the little bell icon below. I've got a Twitter account where I post updates about random stuff, like mainly my videos, but occasionally I'll post something else on there, like some random dev stuff. And yeah, if you like the quality of the videos, I've recently bought a C920 Pro, and off to the side here I've got a Blue Yeti, so my voice should sound a lot better. Okay, it still sounds like my voice, but you'll be able to hear it a lot better at least. So I think that's pretty much everything for me, and I'm out.